Hey folks, it's Swank Ivy, and I'm here with another Letters to an Asexual. This is number 43. I'll just give you a little bit of news and stuff that's been going on before I launch into it. Well, first of all, my birthday is about a week away. I'm about to be 39, so that's pretty cool. What else? I just found out that I'll be losing my job at the end of this month, so that was a great holiday gift and birthday present for me. So right now, technically, I don't have a new job yet, so that's been kind of a big deal since I've been at the same job for 10 years, and I really loved my job, and I'm really going to miss working for my boss. For my part-time job, that was like 28 hours a week that was where my main income was from. And so I've got to find something to replace that, and that's kind of a bummer. Uh, and let's see what else. Oh, here's something that's kind of relevant to this channel. I've been posting a bunch of unlisted videos on this channel. And if you don't know what unlisted means, it means that you have to have the link to be able to see them. The reason that they're unlisted is that they are basically me trying to teach myself how to play ukulele. I bought a ukulele in September, and I proceeded to try to teach myself how to play it. I know my way around it now, but I'm still not really any good. So, I've been kind of trying to record songs about once a week as a way of motivating myself to keep learning new songs and keep practicing. But I'm kind of too embarrassed to share them with like the thousands of people who have subscribed to this channel, and I also kind of would feel bad about spamming you every week with these like crappy ukulele covers. So and to be honest, about half of them are pop songs and half of them are like cartoon songs, mostly from Steven Universe. That's what I'm into, so of course that's a lot of what I'm playing. And if for some reason you are interested in that, I can put the link to the playlist in the notes to this video, but in general I don't really feel comfortable posting them publicly because most of them are just, they're very amateur. I mean, I was a music major and everything, but I really don't have a lot of experience teaching myself instruments, so I'm really just about what you would expect for someone trying to teach themselves an instrument, I think. But, I play and sing and act like a nerd, so maybe that's up your alley, and if so, you can check out my playlist. Let's see, so for this Letters to an Asexual, number 43, I'm going to do something that is maybe a little taboo in the writers community. You're not supposed to respond to your reviews. You're really not supposed to. And so what I'm going to do is, since these do kind of count as letters, I'm going to read short excerpts from a bunch of reviews, good and bad and mediocre, from a variety of places on the internet, including Amazon, Goodreads, and independent reviews. And for the most part, I'm not going to respond to them. I'm just going to share them with you so you can see kind of the mixture of things that people have been saying about my book over the last couple of years that it's been out. Some of them are funny, and some of them are just really nice. I would say the majority of the ones I'm going to read are nice reviews, and I'm very grateful for that. Overall, my book has a very high rating on both Amazon and Goodreads. It's a little lower on Goodreads. I'm not really sure why that is, but I think also Amazon and Goodreads kind of weight their star system differently, even though they're both on a 5-star system. But I have like a 4.5, I think, overall average out of 5 stars on Amazon, and I think it's 4.1 on Goodreads as I make this video. And so occasionally I'll read you one that'll probably just make you burst out laughing, but for the most part, like, they're thoughtful, they're very sweet, and occasionally they are valid criticism. Although I will say that actually most of the stuff that I've gotten that was really good criticism that I ended up incorporating into the revised version when I had the paperback come out, a lot of those were private conversations. They were not really the result of responses to reviews. I mostly just had these conversations behind the fact with other ace activists or people who write about asexuality, trying to figure out like how to address an issue that I agreed was an issue. For the most part, authors don't really get a lot of respect for responding to reviews, so I'm just going to tell you what people have been saying. And I think in a couple of cases I'll give you a clarification on a couple of things, but I'm not going to respond. So here we go. I'm going to start with Amazon, and I'm mostly going in order of most recent to oldest, just because that was the easiest way for me to gather them. Okay, here is a 2-star review from Amazon. So 2 stars is usually not going to be a very good review. Excerpt. The tone of the book is persistently annoying and inappropriate for its intended audience. Someone reading this book would come away with the impression that asexuals are constantly harassed by volatile, immature, and ignorant strangers with no empathy for their identity. If I were reading this book as an asexual person, I would be disappointed to find very little information about how to navigate the world, find self-acceptance, find a good way to portray myself to others, etc. The author is deeply out of touch with the love and empathy awaiting all people in the world. That person also identified themselves as not being asexual, so I very much appreciate, being told what the world is like for asexual people. Oh, oops, I'm responding, aren't I? Okay, 5-star review on Amazon. So much of what she wrote felt like things I could have written myself, as though she had read my mind and put it all into a book. I highly recommend this for anybody questioning their sexuality, or for friends and family of asexuals to learn more about it. Okay, the next one, a 1-star review from Amazon. After careful examination of the author's internet presence, I cannot at all take this author seriously as a credible voice. And I'm frankly disappointed that this is the person that the asexual community has turned to for its speaker. The author maintains a personal website that is frankly a stunning tribute to narcissism. The writing here is not incompetent and not offensive, but I must ask once more, can we really do no better than this? This is the work of a Tumblr user, groomed by an editor's careful eye, and wrapped in a deceiving facade of legitimacy. And for the record, my editor actually didn't change any of my wording or anything like that. They just kind of added a bunch of punctuation standards and made it conform to a style guide, but I actually got almost no changes to my original manuscript, so that's like a factually incorrect statement that an editor pruned my stuff into a book. That's kind of funny. And for the record, that actually seemed to be a review of my online persona, not my book. It seems like if it was just about my book, it would have been a positive review. That's kind of funny. Next one is from Amazon, 5 stars. Very helpful book. It deepened my understanding and helped me understand the issues and social views about asexuality. I can see this is not going to be an easy path, mostly because it is so unknown to people. Seems very important to start getting the word out. This courageous book lights the way. Next review, 1-star review on Amazon. I am completely open to the possibility that this is an orientation rather than a condition. The problem for me was that this author comprehensively failed to make her case. It had absolutely no personal accounts whatsoever. Not even that of the author, not in the portion I read anyway. I think I would have learned a lot more and empathized a lot more if I could have heard from people who experienced this phenomenon / condition / orientation and had been able to read their input. If a person is asexual, why are they identifying with any sexually oriented group? The author doesn't tackle this. Not in the first 50% of this book anyway. And what's funny with that one is, obviously I didn't respond to any of these things publicly, but the comments on that one included one person who went through all of the various accusations. This was a lot longer, of stuff that I apparently had failed to include in the book, and wrote what page I actually had done what they said in their review I hadn't done. And the book actually has quotes from asexual bloggers throughout in little gray boxes. It has personal experiences from lots of asexual bloggers, and the introduction is my personal information about why I identify as asexual. So I thought that was actually kind of weird, how it was like it contains absolutely none of this, and it's like throughout the book. One person who commented on that review wrote this. When the person complained in another part of this review that there was nothing in it from scientific research. They wrote many footnotes throughout the book reference scientific findings about or otherwise related to asexuality. The author did not write the book as a scientific argument that asexuality is a legitimate orientation. For works in that category, I'd recommend the list beginning on page 192, entitled Published Papers and Book Chapters on Asexuality, and the list beginning on page 200, titled Bibliography. This is a book primarily intended for persons who are considering that they may be asexual, and for persons who have had a loved one disclose asexuality to them. And then the person told them that there were those gray boxes every few pages in the sidebars. The next one is a 5-star review on Amazon. As someone who has struggled with my own sexuality, or more accurately, my resistance to sexuality, my entire life, this book helped me find the words to understand and express what I have been dealing with. I highly recommend this book for anyone looking to educate themselves about asexuality. Next Amazon review, 5 stars. This book gave me the words I was lacking to fully express myself, and answered questions I wasn't sure how to ask. I've talked in various places before about being asexual and what that means for me. It's something I've understood for a while now and have grown pretty comfortable with, even if sometimes it's a bit frustrating, since it's one of those things that isn't very well understood and is often mocked or belittled by people who don't know that much about it. And for every person that's ever asked me a stupid question about it, I wish I could just press a copy of The Invisible Orientation into their hands and say, here, all the answers are in here. 5-star review, Amazon. This is admittedly the only book I've read on asexuality, so I can't say for certain, but I honestly can't imagine a better one. It came to me at the perfect time, erasing so much stress from my life within a week, simply by allowing me to see, in someone else's words and experience, all the things I'd been struggling to reconcile. This is a fantastic resource for those who are asexual and those who are curious about asexuality. Anyone who's got the questions about themselves or others, and I highly recommend it to anyone seeking answers about the issue. Next review, 5-star review, Amazon. This is such a good book, and high time such a book was published. If you identify as asexual or know someone who does, or even if you don't know of anyone who is or don't know what I'm talking about, you should read this book. In fact, if you are at all interested in how humans relate to each other, you should read The Invisible Orientation. That was nice. 5-star review, Amazon. I had the pleasure of interviewing the author for our podcast. Oh, that was a great podcast. That was really fun. And reading the book in preparation for the interview was an amazing experience. I read every book out there on human sexuality. It is my job, after all. This book was the most eye-opening, inspiring book I've read in a really long time. This book is a generous lens into the asexual experience, offering insights that will help everyone better understand their sexuality. For anyone interested in human sexuality, this is a must-read. And I should say also that this was from a sexuality professional who does, a podcast that's explicitly on sex and the spectrum surrounding it. And I've found that sexuality activists, you would kind of think that they would be resistant to the idea of asexuality or not tend to be as inclusive about it, but that's exactly the opposite of what is happening in practice. Sexuality advocates and sexological body workers, sexuality professionals, sex therapists, by and large, they have been the most accessible, most accepting people in this world for a book like mine. They've been very welcoming. They've been very kind about reviewing it. They've promoted it. So I'm not going to say I'm surprised about that, because I I kind of knew that from interacting with them, but it just goes to show you, people who actually spend a lot of time with this stuff think it's a necessary subject, and I really appreciate their support. Okay. 5-star review, Amazon. As someone who has encountered asexual people both offline and online, this book was most definitely a good guide on the subject. While I relate to many of the ideas presented, I was unaware of the exact position an asexual person is in when they come out. It's not common for someone, even a wannabe ally, to understand what is going on. I learned a lot in this book and shall use it in the future for reference should I encounter any of these situations. I also hope this book becomes a valuable resource to the asexual community as a means of coming out about their sexual orientation. The author presents each situation in a very comfortable manner, so a person who is curious or being presented with asexuality can easily present it to their family, friends, or loved ones without feeling like being backed into a corner. I thought that was awesome. Thanks! 5-star review, Amazon. I know there are a lot of people like me out there who don't understand asexuality, so I'm glad this book has been created as a reference guide to educate the public about 1 in 100 people who identify as asexual. This book is very well written, clear, and concise. The author wrote this book in order to provide the next generation of asexual people a chance to live life more fully and without self-doubt. Next review, 5 stars, Amazon. As an asexual person who has followed Julie's website and blog for quite a few years, I found that very little of this was new to me. Some of the content was a bit repetitive, probably because a curious person who picks up this book is more likely to skim through the chapters relevant to their situation than read it all the way through. But neither of these observations at all diminishes my excitement, relief, or gratitude at finally having a mainstream text that both addresses an outsider's questions and concerns and provides an insider's perspective. I will absolutely be sending this to my parents and recommending it for my school's Queer Resource Center library. That was actually a common criticism, which I completely accept as true, that the book had a repetitive aspect to it, and the person who wrote this review hit on the exact reason. It was expected that some people who were unsure of whether the book was for them might look at the table of contents and flip through to try to find the section that was most important to them or most relevant to them and start reading there, or might skip around, or might even use parts of it as excerpts in readings. And because of that, there was a lot of repetition. There were a lot of attempts to make certain parts more, more able to be lifted out of the book without losing the integrity. So I guess I kind of sacrificed the overall experience of reading it for the likelihood that that would happen. And I still don't know if that was the right choice, because so many people mentioned in their reviews that it was repetitive. But I still would rather see it being able to be used in chunks where it's most likely to be used that way in sexuality curriculums, or for people who are going right to the place that speaks to them. So, and I would much rather have the experience of, people who are reading it cover to cover and saying, this has already been said before, than to have somebody go to a section of the book and find that they're kind of lost, or they feel like the language is, it's not inclusive because it assumes familiarity with terms that might be defined earlier, or familiarity with situations that are not discussed in that exact section. So, there you have it. Alright, and one more Amazon review, 5 stars, a really good comprehensive introduction to asexuality, great resource for people on the asexual and aromantic spectrums, and people who have loved ones on the ace-aro spectrums. I powered through this book in 2 days and was crying within 10 pages from the profound sense of relief and support this book provides. So you'll notice a lot of asexual people who rated this book high mention their personal feelings and their relief. So I think that kind of speaks to when you contrast that with some of the folks who have given it lower reviews, who are saying that they don't relate to this or don't see the need for it. because it isn't personally relevant to them. So I don't know, you can take that however you want. Alright, now to some Goodreads reviews. Apparently there I have 376 ratings, 81 reviews. 42% of those reviews are 5-star, and 33% of them are 4-star. So most of them are positive. That's very nice. First Goodreads review, 3 stars. Great introductory book on asexuality. It's a great overview for how most asexual people understand asexuality for themselves, regardless of the science. Book is geared for those who don't know about asexuality and are interested in learning more about it. Very comprehensive. Some great explanations for a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings. Can be a bit preachy and repetitive at times. The tone occasionally comes across as condescending, and it's mostly anecdotal and consensus information versus scientific fact. Next Goodreads review was 5 stars. I especially appreciated the book's discussion of the effects of invisibility and its relationship to oppression, as well as why LGBTQ spaces might or might not want to be more inclusive of asexual people. Personally, I found that what the book offered me as a queer, non-asexual person was exactly what Decker suggests asexual people might provide queer communities. Asexual people bring insight into romantic identity and breakdowns of different types of intimacy that aren't commonly discussed. Many non-asexual queer people who have engaged with asexual communities have learned about sophisticated models of attraction that were useful to them in their own non-normative relationships. Exactly! After reading this book, I'm not only better informed about asexuality, but also have new language to describe and frameworks to help me think through my own relationships. It's a win-win. That was very nice. Next Goodreads review, 3 stars. This is an easy read if you can skip the redundant information. Also, narrative at a few places that asexual people are overall at disadvantages without taking into account any advantages freeing up of their time because of no sex in their lives is problematic. I wondered if that person, when I read that, I wondered if that person thought that asexual people don't have sex, period. I don't know. Next Goodreads review, 3 stars. I realize this is an early book on the subject, but it still left me disappointed. A cross between a textbook and an expansion of the FAQ of a website, this doesn't really have any depth and is a bit shoddy between distinguishing between proper research and summarizing impressions from online discussion forums. Next Goodreads review, 2 stars. This book might be better and shorter if the author were writing from a place of compassion rather than frustration. Her anger as a misunderstood asexual person may well be legitimate, but it clouds her judgment as a writer seeking to educate the broader public. About 30 pages contain truly eye-opening information. The other 220 pages consist in a repetitive lecture about what asexuality isn't and how not to judge or oppress asexual persons. Points well taken, but for non-asexual readers seeking to be better informed, it might be most beneficial to hear this lecture once and then move on to new information, such as concrete examples and full narratives in diverse voices, rather than reading the same dozen or so points repeated over and over in the same defensive and sarcastic tone. Next Goodreads review, 5 stars. This book helped me a lot to name my feelings and my orientation. I'm so glad that I could read through it. In some cases, it was so hard to read because it reminded me so much of the things I went through. Next Goodreads review, 5 stars. I think the book does an especially good job at acknowledging how diverse people on the asexual spectrum and in general are, how personal and individual every experience is, even when it doesn't have room to explore something in more detail. The focus of the book is narrowed down very well. It handles its introductory nature perfectly. What I love about this book is also how well outside views on asexuality are taken into account without sacrificing any of the reality of asexual experiences. The book stands firm on its ground. The goal is for people to understand asexuality, but it's also able to stay objective enough and understand everyone else so well it's hard to imagine a better landing on the subject. Next Goodreads review is 4 stars. I'm so glad this book exists. There is a strong need for greater awareness, and the title, The Invisible Orientation, is well chosen. The book offers good information and tries to cast its net wide enough to be inclusive. Sometimes this compromises the clarity of what is being presented, but I don't know how that could have been avoided with an introduction type book. There's often a defensive tone, which is understandable, but it was off-putting. I wish the editor had pushed for a more inviting tone so readers don't feel chastised for not understanding something that's new to them. Next review on Goodreads, 4 stars. I'll admit, when I first started reading, this part of me said, I know I'm not going to learn anything new, because I've been researching this stuff for years, and no, nothing was particularly mind-blowing, but this book is good. I wish I had discovered it years ago, before the days of internet searching and Wikipedia. I wish it wasn't so specialized, in that you have to actively seek out the topic rather than it being right there among other LGBT plus books. Because this book is important. It's for the asexual ones, for the ones who know someone asexual, and for those who simply want to learn more and understand. Next review is on Goodreads, 5 stars. Have you ever read a book and thought, holy crap on a stick, my life would have been so much easier if this had been published several years ago? Because that's how I feel about this book. Decker does a great job outlining what asexuality is, and more importantly, isn't, as well as dispelling a lot of myths and falsehoods about the orientation, advice and reassurances on relationships and coming out and other kinds of attraction, and there's even a section for allies. All around, I think it's a great resource, particularly because there is so little information / so few resources for asexuality, especially in comparison to other non-hetero orientations. I figured out, I guess that's the right phrase, my sexuality about 3 years ago, and I spent the previous 5 to 7 years before that feeling pretty confused and frustrated, and sometimes isolated. If I had had access to a book like this that explained asexuality so clearly and validated what I was feeling at the time, it would have saved me a lot of trouble and helped me find words to express what I was feeling or not feeling, as the case may be. I'm grateful the book exists now, though, and that people who are still figuring out their sexuality had access to a well-written text like this. That was nice, thank you. Next Goodreads review, 4 stars. This is the Asexuality 101 book. It's for laypersons, but I think it should also be required reading for professionals looking to better serve their asexual clients. It's a starting point for real understanding, and one that outsiders looking in just can't provide. And next I'm moving to a couple reviews from Audible, which is for the audiobook. 5 stars on Audible. As a little understood sexual orientation, asexuality may seem inscrutable to non-asexuals and overwhelmingly nuanced to people wondering how or whether to place themselves along the asexual spectrum. Julie Sandra Decker's book patiently and thoroughly covers a vast range of those nuances. She's extremely careful and precise in her language, inclusive and conscientious. She doesn't descend into sarcasm or irritation, even when addressing some of the most tone-deaf FAQs lobbed at out and activist asexuals. Seems like there's a contradiction sometimes, like some people don't think I've been sarcastic at all, and other people think that that's the primary tone of what I'm saying. It just really depends on, I guess, whether they're feeling like if I'm explaining why you shouldn't say something, they're taking it personally as if I'm accusing them of having said this. And I'm sure that somewhere in between those two is probably the truth. I probably did come across as, jaded or defensive sometimes. But I think that that's maybe unavoidable if you're going to feel like you're coming from a genuine perspective as well. This is my lived experience, and I did, to some extent, convey that in this book. Next Audible review. 1 star. Garbage. Save yourself money. Asexual people come in all different shapes and sizes. Author rambles for pages repeating the same thing. This asexual shouldn't write books. And now some reviews that people did not submit to public websites but just put on their own review sites or may have included in roundups or otherwise released on the internet somewhere. Okay, so this is one of those reviews. These are all excerpts from longer reviews. This is a long overdue book, offering the general purpose introduction to the subject which has heretofore been lacking. It is an essential addition to any academic reading list that encompasses asexuality and should be required reading for any therapists with an interest in sexuality. It provides a sense of what it is like to be asexual that can sometimes be missing from the academic work, and it engages with the literature while nonetheless refusing to be constrained by it. It is also immensely readable, providing an authoritative overview that signposts the reader who is keen to explore further. I can't recommend The Invisible Orientation highly enough and hope it has a wide readership. Next review. In today's world, asexual people are ignored, misunderstood, dismissed, and silenced. To the sometimes life-saving relief of everyone touched by asexuality, this book is a bedrock of proof that asexuality is an orientation and not a decision or worse, a symptom. Warm and thorough, The Invisible Orientation shines a light on asexuality throughout all stages of life and acts as a positive guide for navigating successful relationships of all kinds and with all genders and orientations. Here's another one. I had never heard of asexuality before, and it was like walking into a dark room and turning on the light switch. Everything she said resonated with me, and it was just so wonderful to finally understand what was going on with me. So it was through education that I finally understood myself, and that's why we need this book, because we need to understand not only ourselves, but every orientation on the sexual spectrum. And here's another one. I honestly could not think of a better person to write this book. Aw. And I'm so glad something like this exists. The book covers historical studies and the differences between things you might not even realize should be separated. Decker's skills as a writer also show when it comes to how well-versed and organized this book is. That was really nice, too. Just a few more. Okay, here's a short one. Of the 3 books on asexuality that I've read this year, this one was my favorite. It's written in very clear, accessible language. It covers a variety of topics and issues. It's a great starting point for anyone looking to learn more about asexuality. And then this last one. I mean, for a long, long time, I just felt like a failure because I didn't know that asexuality was a thing. And thus, I just thought I was a broken heterosexual. And even when I did know that asexuality was an option, I thought it meant something different. So seeing a book like this in the marketplace pleases me immensely. I mean, it would have been nice if I could have read it years ago and saved myself a fair bit of personal anguish, but what can you do? Indeed, what can you do? I wrote it when I wrote it, it was published when it was published, and sometimes I do think about that, like, what would this book have been if I hadn't, if I had tried to write it years ago before I had some of the support of the community that I had by the time that I wrote it. I'd say I had over 100 different people help me with that book, just by reading parts that were relevant to them, or by looking through the whole book and offering perspectives. I had people have me on their podcasts, have me as a guest on their blogs, all kinds of stuff where people basically they fed in to what the book became, and that the book was the product of that. It's really nice to hear after the fact what people thought of it, even if some of the people didn't have positive things to say. And I'll be the first to say that I don't expect to be liked by everybody, and I'm actually relieved that it's not just an echo chamber in the reviews. I would be a little bit disturbed if the only thing I had was positive reviews, because it would feel like that's not a realistic assessment of what people thought of it. And considering there are people out there who don't think that asexuality is important, or don't like the way that we approach it, however that is. They don't seem to like anything that we do to try to get attention for it. I would have been very surprised if none of them came to my reviews and said, that the book was garbage and I shouldn't write. you're always going to find a reflection of that. If the book gets popular enough, you're always going to get some trollish people or people saying things that are just an attack on your person rather than on your writing. And I think I certainly learned a lot about maybe what I should focus on the next time that I try to write something in this category. I'm not planning any more nonfiction book-length manuscripts, although, you never know what the future might hold. But I'm not planning to release anything else. Just maybe essays and articles and short publications. I don't really feel like I have the energy to do a project like this again, to be honest, and I just kind of want to continue creating smaller content and individually supporting people in the community. But I've done what I've done, and it's maybe some other people's turn. But I keep looking at the reviews. I keep seeing people making references to the book helping them or helping their loved one, and every time I get a private message reacting to my book or a public review or someone mentions it on the internet and I see it, I feel like it was so rewarding to be able to have an influence on someone else's life, preferably a positive influence on someone else's life, to feel like I was there for them even though I didn't know them, and that they got to hear something that they needed to hear. That was kind of the connecting thread to a lot of those positive reviews, is I needed this and it came along when I needed it and it helped me. And to be honest, that is just, it's the most rewarding aspect of doing this kind of work. So anyway, I will probably go back to my regularly scheduled hate mail reading next time. I certainly have plenty of those stored up, so, but I hope that you enjoyed this little break from tradition, and I'll give you guys a little life update and news and more letters to an asexual next time. Thanks for watching.